Hey, everyone. You're listening to Juicy Radio. I'm your host, Tony Bacigalupo. So great to be back on the air with you guys here. I don't know if we call it on the air, but whatever you call it in the podcast world. In this episode, I will be interviewing Nick Clark of the Common Desk with 3 locations in the Dallas, Texas area. Nick came from a background in the realm of commercial real estate as a one of Dallas area's top brokers, but then discovered the world of co-working, really fell in love with that whole world, and is now just running an amazing network of co-working spaces in that area. Nick is also the president of Lexi, the League of Extraordinary Co-working Spaces. So I'll be talking to him a little bit about that and a little bit about those spaces he runs. And we'll definitely be talking about how excited we are for the next Juicy Conference happening in New York in May, 5th to 7th, if my math is right. Then and that's in New York City, my hometown. So I'm very excited to be having all of you guys to be doing Juicy in my hometown, and I'd love to see you guys there. So if you are already coming, I'm psyched to see you. Shoot me a message. Let me know you're excited too. If you're thinking about coming, shoot me a message. Let me know, and I will tell you, I will answer any questions you might have about New York City, including my secret for how to get excellent halal food near where the Juicy event is going to be for very affordable prices. So go ahead and hit me up, Tony@nwc.co, TONY@nwc.co. But without further ado, let's get to our interview with Nick Clark here on Juicy Radio, episode 11. Nick, thanks for joining us on the program. Just to start off, can you tell us a little bit about your story, how you came to know about co-working, and what motivated you to make the jump into running a space?
Definitely. Thanks, Tony. I started with a real estate background. When I graduated from college in 2005, I went straight into leasing and management of office buildings. I worked for a company in Dallas that owned, leased, and managed about 4 million square feet of your traditional, mid to high rise 1985 multi-tenant office building. I did that for 7 years, really all the way through the recession. And it was during those years that I oddly developed this passion for the workspace. And it became very apparent to me that people are spending most of their lives at work, and most office environments are pretty boring and quite dreadful. And so during the recession is when really a lot of workspace trends started to shift. We started seeing companies coming into our buildings that were wanting to really densify the office, and creative density became a thing. And in Dallas, since everybody drives their big trucks to work, our parking garages in traditional office buildings just had a hard time accommodating the density. So we were having a hard time making these deals with these creative companies that were wanting to pack 7 to 8 people into 1,000 square feet, because the spaces were built for 3 people per 1,000, which seems ridiculous in our co-working world. And then, a lot of creatives were being laid off during that time, and they were embarking on freelance careers because they couldn't find a job. And so those freelancers were filling up the local coffee shops. And, between, observing all of these different things, it became very apparent that the product that I was leasing and managing was becoming antiquated. And I was really thirsty and eager to go out and to try to get ahead of the trend, so to speak. And so it was 2011 when I really discovered co-working. I discovered it was actually an executive suite operator here in Dallas they were just doing things a little bit differently. They were what I would consider one of the cooler executive suite operators, but they weren't quite co-working. And so I was intrigued. It piqued my interest. I started doing a little homework on the shared office industry, and that's really where I discovered co-working and realized, wow, this is become quite a thing on both coasts. And then I discovered Juicy, and I immediately signed up to attend Juicy. And it was the very beginning of 2012 when I actually quit my job in commercial real estate and decided that this co-working thing was for me, and I was going to go, completely into it. And so I would say that really became a reality in March of that year when I attended the Juicy conference, and it lit a new fire in me. It was co-working was the wonderful blend of community and workspace design that I really enjoyed. And so that was the beginning of Common Desk. We're a bootstrap co-working space. And so we started here in Dallas in the neighborhood of Deep Ellum, which is just a few blocks east of downtown. We started with about 3,500 square feet and about 20 members. And over the years, we've grown that location to 18,000 square feet and over 300 members. And then we've expanded into another great neighborhood of Dallas, which is the Bishop Arts District of Oak Cliff, which is in South Dallas. And then this year we've got big plans for more expansions. We're expanding into Plano, which is a North Dallas suburb, as well as Fort Worth. And so it should be an exciting year. But yeah, that's the quick story of how it all got started.
That's so exciting, and I always love to hear stories of bootstrapped projects. Can you maybe dig in with me a little bit deeper around that moment when you decided to quit the job, make the jump, and really, take a deep breath and dedicate yourself to this? Did you have a lot of entrepreneurial experience at that point? Obviously, at that point, you weren't operating space. You were helping other people get their spaces. So this was a big shift for you personally. So I'm curious, what was it that made you, what was it like when you, the day you quit that job, the day after that, for you to make that commitment?
I wish I could say it was real rosy and a fun experience. It was actually pretty rough. Only because, I was a real estate leasing guy. And so I knew one thing really well. I wasn't an entrepreneur necessarily yet. I had an entrepreneurial spirit about me, or else I wouldn't have done that. But 2012 was a tough year. You start realizing that, other than the few things that you've been doing in your professional career, there's a lot of things you don't know. And I really learned the power of engaging the right people, bringing in the right people for either some consulting or a little bit of help. And just, the power of continuing to move forward one small step at a time. 'Cause I'll never forget of just getting so overwhelmed, while I was kind of right there in the middle of it, especially really before we opened. It's kind of that phase of, oh my gosh, we signed a lease. Now I'm really doing this. Still don't know what I'm doing. And so kind of that phase up until opening day, which for us was October 1st, 2012. It was crazy, but it was, I look back and think, man, I got through it because every day I just kind of focused on checking things off the list and getting one more thing done. And slowly but surely, you learn just like anything else in life.
Yeah, for sure. I feel you on that. I know exactly what you mean. Big leap for you, I'm sure. And I know those early days can be really challenging. And, one of the things I wonder, because I talk to a lot of other folks who are starting spaces or they're thinking of starting spaces now, I imagine that a number of the folks who are listening to this conversation are in that position where they're just getting started or haven't even started yet. And I wonder, what would I tell them? What would I tell myself if I went back to that time, and, what would I tell me to do differently? Do you have any thought of, what would you tell 2012 Nick Clark?
I would say, I feel like you can't go wrong when you really focus on the fact that you're trying to build a brand, you're trying to build a community. And so if you understand what your community, your brand needs to look like, what you really want it to look like, and you focus on that day in, day out, you're still going to make mistakes, right? We've all made mistakes. It's part of the journey. But if you focus on continuing to build that that brand. You can continue to build a space that people want to be at and they want to connect with. I feel like you're going to continue pushing forward. It's times when I got off the path is when I started thinking, oh man, we need a big technology on the back end to kind of help bring all this together and run our space. And, we go start working on that, or you get a little distracted because things get slow with your co-working space. So you start working on a different project. And my encouragement is just stay the course. And if you're going to commit to it, you're ready to go open a space, make sure you've got a long enough runway to give it a couple of years to allow it to build and allow it to work. And then again, just staying focused on the brand that you're trying to build.
Okay, so that leads me to another question, which I know comes up for people when they're trying to kind of decide how to kind of pitch what it is that they're doing in a way that aligns with their own personal interests, but also kind of resonates with the people in their city. Because a lot of times people, don't really know what's going to work, what's going to attract potential members. Did you kind of use your experience to make a really good educated guess as to what you thought was needed just based on your real estate experience, and that was able to give you a really clear sense of what the vision would be? Or were you kind of pragmatic about refining that as you were getting more information from the folks who responded to what you were saying as you went?
Yeah, it was a little bit of both. I will say that, some of those, very beginning things that you have to do, like, one is finding a space, right? That's a very important decision. That was the one area where I had a little bit of a leg up in the fact that I knew the market well, and signing a lease wasn't actually too daunting for me because that's what I did in my former professional life. But, for Common Desk, I mean, we made a lot of decisions at the time based on economics, since we were a bootstrap space. So, we weren't going to go into, a Class A office building and pay $35 triple net rates. So it almost, that alone kind of forced us into more of a hipster warehouse type neighborhood where, we could get rates that were 1/3 of a Class A office building. And then with that, I think you got to take, as an entrepreneur, a good long look at yourself and make sure that the brand that you're wanting to build is on brand with who you are as a person, or else it's going to be pretty difficult. And so going back to us being in Deep Ellum, which again is a warehouse district that is slightly east of downtown Dallas. A little bit had to do with economics. A little bit had to do with I was very passionate about the neighborhood and the fact that it was going to really rebound and have some great restaurants and great offerings as far as walkability for our future members. And then, before we ever even signed a lease on the space, we would do coffee shop meetups every single week to start trying to build a community of people that were just simply working together. And a little bit of it had to do with just listening to them, and what they wanted. And, especially at the time in 2012, we're really trying to pitch ourselves as this alternative to the norm. And Deep Ellum as a neighborhood in Dallas is a very alternative type of neighborhood. So it was really those three elements that landed us in our first location.
Wow. So it sounds like, that you basically kind of create this balance of, this is kind of a vision that I have. There's a belief that I have, and I know that that's what I have, and I believe in it, and that's what I want to share and be very kind of strong about it. But then in terms of kind of how you go about actually doing the thing, which location you pick or how exactly you go about developing a lot of the specific aspects of the community, that's where you can kind of put things out, do these events where you're getting feedback from people, and then adjust kind of the specifics of the implementation. But the overarching vision and the overarching kind of brand is something that, kind of comes from within, right? And you're not you're not just going to do something that you think the market will pay for if you don't personally have some kind of a personal interest or investment in it, because otherwise it's just not going to resonate for you or for anybody else, right?
Yeah, it's very, very correct. Which, again, that's how I like to personally grow the business and do business when it comes to Common Desk. I'm sure there's plenty of other successful strategies out there, but for us, it's been so much easier when you can really believe in the brand, believe in the neighborhoods the brand is in. And then, even when it comes all the way down to the build out of the space, things inherently make a little bit more sense on even how to build out the space based on the neighborhood that you're going into.
Yeah, well, and exactly. So there's kind of a balance to be had there for sure. So I'm wondering, now that you've been doing this for a few years, you're now expanding to multiple locations. Where's this all going for you in general? Like, do you have kind of a sense of where you want to see this go for yourself, for your organization over time?
Yeah, I mean, we have a rough roadmap in place. I mean, for me myself, I'm still very passionate about just the workplace and making sure that it's not mundane for people, that it's fun, it's inspiring, it's connective, there's community involved. And so, we're trying to expand that out at this point. We feel like 5 years later, we've developed a brand now that kind of resonates in some of these alternative neighborhoods of Dallas, which has given our brand kind of this alternative vibe that people enjoy and they like to see. But now it's like, hey, can we extend the brand, out to some of the Dallas suburbs to make sure that really everybody's getting to benefit from co-working in general. And if so, what does that look like? What does a Plano, which is a North Dallas suburb, what does a Plano space look like as opposed to our original Deep Ellum space? And for us, saying, hey, let's make sure it's still on brand with Common Desk, but let's also make sure it fits into Plano, because it's not in Deep Ellum. It's not in an old warehouse right next to downtown. And so, we're right now just continuing to grow. And this year is all about going into multiple cities, seeing as a staff if we enjoy that. And if we do, I think the next step for us is going to say, hey, what would it look like to, apply the brand to a larger building, still have a smaller co-working space down on the first and second floors, but I think going back to some of my professional roots of leasing and management, saying, hey, what if we lease and manage the rest of the building so that we can give a consistent experience for everybody that offices there? One weird trend that I think is happening right now is just these giant co-working spaces that are opening. For example, WeWork signed an 80,000 square foot lease in downtown Dallas. Will they fill the space? Maybe, but I think the weird part about it is the fact that they took 80,000 square feet from that landlord and basically said that we can do it better. So everybody else in the building that's not a part of that 80,000 square feet is kind of being left out of this co-working culture, whereas a good portion of the building is benefiting from it. And so I think there's going to at some point be kind of an interesting link between traditional real estate and co-working. And traditional real estate is going to be drastically influenced by this co-working phenomenon. It's going to be interesting to see what operators kind of make that leap into kind of being able to do both, so to speak.
Okay, so if there's a few things I want to unpack here, but that last bit, I'm interested in your thoughts. Zooming out a little bit, coming from the movement side for me, a lot of the folks who kind of came into the co-working movement sort of see the real estate world kind of changing what co-working is, because they're kind of coming and bringing this very real estate minded vibe. But the perspective that you could also take is to say, well, co-working is actually changing real estate. And, there's still plenty of very community-minded co-working spaces, but people in the commercial real estate world are just looking at what it means to operate a space in a world where more and more people are working for themselves, less and less companies are looking to lease out big floor plates for their employees because that's just not how they manage people in the same way. And so, maybe this co-working concept is really challenging what it means to be in the business of commercial real estate. So maybe that's a good thing, and maybe that's okay. Where do you think? I guess this is kind of an open-ended question, but where do you think all this is going in the big picture? And maybe where would you like to see it go?
Well, first, kind of go back on some comments that you just made. I do think it's a little bit of both, right? I think there's some real estate landlords out there that are seeing co-working, they're seeing money signs, and they're wanting to get into the business because of what they believe to be better financials or better prices per square foot. And then there's other landlords out there that are looking at it from more of a trend perspective and saying, man, there's something to what those co-working space operators are doing that we seem to be missing out on over here with our buildings. And whether we put a co-working space in our building or not, I'd like to go sit at the table with that operator and take some notes and learn some things. And I think that's where co-working spaces are actually being very influential on commercial real estate as when it comes to your traditional offerings. So it kind of goes back to like, well, do you want to be influenced or do you want to be influential? And I think a lot of operators are being very influential on traditional real estate. I'm sorry, I went back a little bit. And so what was your question that you had actually asked me?
Well, where do you see all this going, and where would you like to see it go? I guess in terms of society, in terms of the bigger impact of these conversations.
Yeah, I'd like to see it. I'd like for us to look back in 15 or 20 years and think, man, co-working is still very much so alive and well. And unlike what Executive Suites was ever able to do, co-working really was able to influence office space and the way people work. And I think that's already starting to happen a little bit. And a lot of my buddies that are still on the landlord side of real estate, as opposed to talking to companies' real estate employees, they're now talking to their HR staff. Because the HR staff is dictating the real estate. And, what that means is they're wanting to figure out, well, hey, what are the amenities being offered in the building? What is the walkability? Are there shared bikes in the building for us to utilize? Is there mass transit that is close by? So it has started drastically changing the way people perceive the real estate requirements. And then, I think in the last even just 18 months, you're starting to see, corporations see co-working as a solution, as opposed to the one-off freelancers and the teams of two co-founders that are coming in and signing 1 to 2 memberships at a time. You're seeing large companies like Toyota or AT&T saying, man, maybe we should give some of our creative teams the ability to not have to be at the corporate office and untether from the corporate desk and go utilize a few of these co-working spaces around town and really be able to office anywhere. And again, I think these are all things that co-working has influenced over its last 10 years.
Awesome stuff, Nick. I'm with you all the way on a lot of this. And man, it's actually, we got a lot of different things I want to cover as well. So let me jump into something else. What is it that you had said earlier that you are working on constantly keeping things fresh for the members, keeping things exciting? This is something that I'm constantly interested in because I think it's a problem for a lot of co-working space owners that, essentially every day becomes kind of the same, where you kind of want people to come in, you want people to keep paying, and you want things to kind of stay the same, but you can't keep things the same. You got to keep things fresh. So do you have any quick stories of anything you guys are doing lately that really helps to keep people engaged and excited and kind of looking forward to coming back into the space?
Sure. Yeah. it's funny you brought this one up because this is definitely a struggle. I think it's a struggle for most. And I always compare it to, people have their favorite restaurants that they go to around town, right? And they will typically, maybe one of your most favorite restaurants that you have in New York. Maybe you go there a couple of times a month. And so a restaurateur doesn't have to change up the menu quite as often, or change up the seating or change up the decor because you're only going in once or twice a month. Whereas with co-working, some of your better members are coming in just about every day. And so, even the coolest, most creative office with great events can become mundane if it's the same day in and day out. And so, Common Desk, we try to, we're trying to constantly shift things around in the physical space. Sometimes that simply means shifting around the way the seating is set up. Sometimes that means, doing a weekend warrior project where, like, for example, last fall, we built an entire patio during the weekend and installed a glass garage door to where members came back in on Monday, and there's like this whole new amenity to the space. And when we do things like that, we almost try to do them ridiculously fast so that the members leave and it's one way and they come back and it's this whole new way. And so those are just a few things that we've done within the physical space. And then, when it comes to our events, I've noticed that, when an event has been on the calendar continuously for 6 to 12 months, it starts to be less attended. And so just over the years, we've found that's very important to also really continue refreshing your event calendar. An example of that is every Friday for the last few years, we've had an event called Show and Tell. It's like a throwback to your elementary day years, but it gives a few members a chance to just get up and talk a little bit about what they're doing. And some of them go through a very formal pitch deck. And some of them will just get up and say, "Hey, I'm Nick, founder of Common Desk. Here's my story. If you guys want to grab a beer with me later, I'd love to chat." And it's been great, but you could tell here in the last few months that it's needed a refresher. And so we've switched that around to make it more of a panel setup, and it's picking up a little bit more momentum again. And so I think between the events and the physical space, I think it's good to constantly be thinking about, hey, how can we continue changing things, or else you're going to see that turnover number go up a little bit on you.
Yeah. Well, yeah. That's the thing, right? You have to constantly be looking at that. Well, great. Awesome. We are a little short on time, so I want to hit up two other quick things before we go. Your work with Lexi and also your thoughts on the upcoming Juicy Conference in New York. Can you tell me just a little bit about how things are going with Lexi? For those of us listening who don't know what it is, if you just want to tell a little bit about it and what your experience has been with it so far.
Yeah, sure. So Lexi stands for the League of Extraordinary Co-working Spaces. And since January of last year, I've been the president of Lexi. And for the last few years as an organization, we've just focused on trying to find great independently owned co-working space operators across the globe that are interested in building a network. And it's the offering there saying, hey, like if you're a great operator in Dallas, but would like to be able to offer your members a chance to go to Seattle, go to New York, go to Chicago, go to London for a few days free each year. Lexi is a great platform for that. And it not only gives them free space, but it's already vetted free space, right? It's, Lexi takes pride in saying, hey, like it's an interview process to get in. You have to fill out an application. And we're doing that just because we want to make sure that each new space that is brought into Lexi, each new brand that is brought into Lexi is as good as the other brands that are already there. That way the members have a consistent experience across the board. And what we focus on when it comes to a new applicant is really their community mindedness of, it's more of an operator's mentality, right? I mean, the space has to be, nice and has to be functional. But the questions that we ask during the interviewing process is really, how do you differ yourself from an executive suite operator or any other shared office space? Is it truly co-working is really what we're trying to boil it down to. So those are the perks for members. The perks for the owners and the operators, it's well worth that, because over the years it's given me a network of peers that I've been able to really plug into. And being that you go into this with really a lot of unknown, a lot of questions, having other operators that are doing things with excellence to be able to answer some of those questions helps, I think, move you along in the process of growing your own brand much quicker.
Great. Well, it sounds awfully compelling, and I'm glad that you guys, that you're in charge of it, that you're continuing to grow it and develop it. Any quick thoughts, any insights into kind of where you're taking it from here?
Yeah, I mean, we just did a big brand refresher for Lexi with a new website, and really the goal is not necessarily get as many brands as we can into Lexi, because again, we like it being a little bit more of an intimate group of great operators. But it has been very fun going from a national organization to more of an international organization. I think that is, as I hand the torch over to a new president in January of next year, that's probably going to be the next big challenge of saying, hey, like, how do you, as an organization that is predominantly made up of brands that are, in the United States, how do we become more of a global organization? And so I would encourage, some of the international co-working spaces that are not in the U.S., if they feel like they meet those criteria, to go to lexi.co, that's our website, and fill out an application and try to join, because I think it's going to be exciting as we continue to expand that out.
Awesome. Okay, last question. You coming to Juicy in New York in May?
Oh, definitely.
Awesome.
Definitely. You heard at the very beginning of my story that it was really Juicy that I think kind of took co-working from an idea to something that I knew I was going to go do. I owe a lot of that to Liz and really what she has done with Juicy. And so I do still enjoy going. I always have takeaways from it. It's always great to meet some new faces. But it's also fun to give back a little bit now, since I know that, Juicy really can help give me a good start within the industry. And so I'm very much so looking forward to it. With Lexi, we're meeting a day early and getting a day's worth of meetings in on Thursday, and then I'm staying for camp on Sunday, so I'll be there for a while.
Great. Any particular thing that you're looking forward to getting out of the experience, aside from just, seeing everyone, having that great Lexi meeting, having some good New York pizza, that kind of thing?
Well, Liz did give me a chance to take the stage on Sunday and speak on real estate finance. And so I look forward to practicing my public speaking skills, I guess. And I'm hoping that a few people will show up.
I'm sure you will have plenty of people show up for that. It's a big, big question for so many people. If you can't get the money to work, then all the other conversations are kind of academic. So the fact that you're there offering your guidance on that, I think will be super valuable to folks. Well, great. I appreciate you taking the time, Nick. It's been great chatting with you, and looking forward to seeing you in not too long from now, just a few weeks.
Yeah, me too. Thank you, Tony. I appreciate it.
Awesome. All right. Thanks so much, Nick. We'll talk to you soon. Safe travels, and see you in New York.
Okay. Take care.
All right. Bye-bye. Awesome. Thanks so much for joining us here at Juicy Radio. I hope you guys really enjoyed that talk, and I hope you guys are right now on coworkyawards.com, COWORKY awards.com. Throw in some submissions. If you run a space, share it up with your members so your members can offer some submissions. And one way or another, we're going to have a really neat award show happening at Juicy in New York City this coming May 5th through 7th. grab your tickets now. It's going to be really great to have you guys in my old home city. So I am excited to have you there. I'm excited to be there. I'm excited to see all these wonderful people. And definitely check out all the details for that at usa.juicy.co. That's usa.gcuc.co. And it's always a pleasure to hang out, do this with you. Looking forward to doing some more episodes soon. Always love to hear your feedback. So shoot me a message, tony@nwc.co, and hope to see you in New York. Otherwise, I'll catch you at the next episode of Juicy Radio. Thanks a bunch and keep being awesome.